I am Reed, I am 27, just an average dude. IV made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. So let me start with something that honestly scared the hell out of me when I first realized it. In 2022, Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion. Then he fired 80% of the staff, that is over 6,000 people, and Twitter didn't collapse, it kept running. Now I know what you are thinking, Reed, that is one company, that is just tech, but look around, headlines everywhere are flooded with companies downsizing. People are losing their livelihoods and everyone's worried if they re-next. And this isn't just about layoffs. The numbers tell a crazy story. Freelance work jumped from 36% of the workforce to almost 47%. Since 2020, the creator economy is projected to double from 250 billion to 480 billion by 2028. And AI, man, I've been reading predictions from people way smarter than me, and some say artificial general intelligence could be here by the end of this year. Some say 2 years. Either way, things are moving faster than ever. I remember being 22 and feeling completely lost. I was living paycheck to paycheck, actually worse than that. I was using credit cards to pay for stuff I couldn't afford and just hoping next month would be better. I had no plan, no savings, and no clue what I was doing with my life. I thought as long as I showed up to work and did my job, I'd be fine. That is what everyone told me, right? Go to school, get a job, work hard, and retire at 65. But that system is broken, and I learned it the hard way. The truth is, nobody knows what the world will look like in 20 years. Not your boss, not your parents, not those experts on television. This is the first time in human history that we have no idea what to teach young people that will still be relevant in 2 decades. That is wild to think about. So here's what I figured out. Understanding these 3 things will completely change your future, whether you realize it or not. Point number 1 is that the entry level is going extinct. It is getting harder and harder to get an entry-level job no matter what field you are in. Programming, marketing, design, sales, whatever. AI can already perform basic specialized work in most areas. Now, this doesn't mean all entry-level jobs disappear. It means the bar is being raised. What used to be entry-level is now junior level or even senior level. The workforce of the future will be made up of highly paid, highly skilled individuals who have a very specific set of traits. So the question becomes, what traits do those people have that you don't? And how do beginners make money nowadays? Point number 2 is that most people aren't as educated as they think they are. And I say this with love because I was one of those people. I thought having a degree meant I was set for life. But here's what I wrote in my notes one time. If you don't create a purpose, you will be assigned one. Think about that. Only slaves were taught to perform one task for their entire lives. They learned career-specific skills like growing wheat or herding sheep. Our current education system reflects that same mindset. We retaught to be useful workers. We retaught to obey authority. We get good grades because we afraid of punishment. But a free person is expected to have a purpose and do whatever it takes to achieve it. They learn many things throughout their life because goals aren't static. They change and evolve as you do. It does make sense to have one single goal like go to school, get a job, and retire at 65. That is not how life actually works. Things change. And hopefully you change too. Point number 3 is that the future of work belongs to one-person businesses. There are almost 8 billion people on this planet, and I genuinely hope someday there will be almost 8 billion companies. A business is just a structure that lets you build what you want, solve valuable problems, and profit from both. I am telling you this because I am tired of people thinking that entrepreneurship requires startup capital or a certain personality. That is total nonsense. Those traits are trained and conditioned. You can develop any trait you want. And if you think you are an introvert, well, maybe you are. But entrepreneurship can actually be great for introverts because you don't have to deal with people all the time. You just build in your room and talk to people online. Let me share something I learned from studying Buckminster Fuller. He wrote this book called Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, and he talks about the great pirates. These pirates understood many things: geography, celestial navigation, biology. The men on their ship, history, science. They were generalists. But the men they brought to work on their ships were kept stupid on purpose. The pirates didn't want them to understand their strategies or try to take over. They just wanted them to follow orders. Meanwhile, the rulers of the land were specialists. They only knew about their own small territory. And guess what? The pirates could lie to them. This gave the pirates enormous power. The land rulers relied on them for trade and knowledge. The pirates even influenced the land rulers to give prestigious roles to the brightest minds in the kingdom, roles like royal historian or treasurer. This kept those bright minds narrow and focused on one thing. They became specialists, and specialists are easy to control. Now, this is just a metaphor, but it explains why specialization is still so heavily pushed today. Schools were created in a way that keeps people narrow-minded, not because there is some evil conspiracy, but because the system benefits from it. People don't like competition. They don't want you to outshine them. So they encourage you to pick one thing and stick with it. Don't stray, don't explore, just be good at one job. And that worked fine for a long time. But we're not living in that world anymore. Here's what IV personally learned after years of making mistakes and figuring things out the hard way. The difference between an animal and a human is that animals specialize to survive. A bird develops a long beak to catch fish in shallow water. But over time, that specialization can lead to extinction. The beaks get so heavy the bird can't fly anymore, or the food source disappears. Humans, on the other hand, build tools to make up for our shortcomings. We learn to throw spears so we could hunt better. We learn to cooperate and share knowledge. We read generalists by nature. We solve problems that prevent our extinction. We don't niche down into dangerous territory, so what skills do you actually need to learn to survive and thrive in this new world? Ivy spent a lot of time studying this, and here is what I believe is the stack of skills that will future-proof your life. First is logic, how to derive truth from known facts. Second is statistics, how to understand what data actually means. Third is rhetoric, how to persuade people and spot when others are trying to persuade you. Fourth is research, how to gather information on any unknown subject. Fifth is practical psychology, how to understand the true motives of other people. Sixth is investment, how to manage and grow whatever assets you have. And seventh is agency, how to make decisions and proactively take action. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but you don't learn these things by just reading about them. You hold them in your mind and let your real-life experiences teach you. You practice them in real time. When I was 23 and drowning in debt, I didn't know any of this stuff. I just knew I was tired of feeling anxious every time I checked my bank account. So I started small. I read books, I listened to podcasts, I followed people online who were living the kind of life I wanted, and slowly I started changing my habits. The 3 practical skills I recommend everyone focus on are marketing and sales writing and thinking and entrepreneurship. Marketing and sales, because if you can attract and persuade people, you'll always depend on someone else to give you what you want. Writing and thinking, because the ability to communicate your ideas clearly is the foundation of everything. And entrepreneurship, because it teaches you how to solve problems and take responsibility for your own life. Let me tell you about the time I first tried freelancing. I had no experience, no portfolio, and no confidence, but I needed money, so I started reaching out to people on social media. I offered to help them with basic marketing tasks for almost nothing. Some people said no. Actually, most people said no, but a few said yes, and those few clients taught me more than any course ever could. I learned how to communicate expectations, I learned how to deliver value, I learned how to handle criticism, and slowly I built a reputation. That is how you start. You don't wait until you are ready. You start before you are ready, and you learn along the way. Now let me address the elephant in the room, everyone. As scared of AI replacing them. And look, I get it. It is scary. But here is the truth that most people miss. AI is a hyper-specialist. It can do specific tasks incredibly well, but it doesn't have a vision. It doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have a personal story or unique perspective. The people who will be replaced are the ones who are already acting like robots. The ones who just follow instructions and never think for themselves. If your entire value is based on doing one repetitive task that can be automated, then yeah, you have a problem. But if you can think critically, communicate effectively, and solve real human problems, you will always have value. The creator economy isn't about becoming some influencer with millions of followers. It is about building a direct relationship with people who care about what you have to offer. I started my own little corner of the internet by just sharing what I was learning. I talked about my mistakes with money. I talked about the books I was reading. I talked about the habits I was trying to build. And slowly people started paying attention. Not because I was an expert, but because I was real, because I was honest about my struggles, because I was one step ahead of them on the same path. Here's a question I want you to ask yourself. Are you building something valuable that prevents your replacement, or are you content being a cog in someone else's machine? Because the beautiful thing about being alive right now is that you have more power than any generation before you. The internet gave individuals the ability to learn almost anything fast and get results from diverse interests. You can be a writer, a designer, a marketer, a filmmaker, all at the same time. You don't have to pick one thing and stick with it for 40 years. That is an outdated model. I want to tell you about one of my friends. He started by selling profile banners for like $50 each. That is not a typo. Profile banners, he learned basic design skills and just started offering to make banners for people on social media. He made enough to pay his bills, then he learned web design and started offering that. He made more money. Then he created digital products. Now he makes multiple 6 figures a year. He didn't start with some revolutionary idea. He started with a small skill and evolved over time. That is what a one-person business looks like. You start small, you learn as you go, and you keep evolving. The most profitable niche in the world is you. Not because you are special in some magical way, but because your combination of experiences, interests, and skills is completely unique. There are millions of people with the same problems you've already solved. If you figured out how to get out of debt, someone else wants to know how you did it. If you figured out how to build a healthy routine, someone else needs that blueprint. If you figured out how to start earning money on the side, someone else is desperate for that knowledge. You don't need to be the world's leading expert. You just need to be one step ahead of the person you you are helping. Let me break down exactly how you can start building your own one-person business. First, you need a skill that solves a problem. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be basic web design, copywriting, social media management, or even teaching people how to use a specific tool. Second, you need a way to attract people who need that skill. Social media is the best way to do this for free. You create content that shows you know what you are talking about. Third, you need an offer, something you can sell. It could be a service like building websites for small businesses. It could be a product like a guide or course, or it could be coaching where you help people one-on-one. Here's the system I used and still use. I spend about 2 to 4 hours a day on my business, 1 hour creating content and engaging with my audience, 1 hour working on my product or service, and the rest on learning and improving. That is it, 4 hours a day max. And over time, that compounds. Your content stays online. Your products keep selling. Your reputation keeps growing. You are not trading time for money like you do at a regular job. You are building assets that work for you. I know some of you are thinking, but Reed, I don't have any experience. I don't have any skills. I don't even know where to start. And I hear you. I was there too. But here's what I learned. You gain experience by stepping into the arena, not by sitting on the sidelines. You can post content online without promising anything to anyone. You can write about what you are learning as you are learning it. That is how you build experience. That is how you get feedback. That is how you improve. The people you admire online weren't born good at this. They practiced and failed and iterated until they got better. And the beautiful thing is when you have 0 followers, nobody cares about your mistakes. You have complete freedom to experiment. The school system is failing and education is the foundation of humanity. Social media has become the new town square. Creators are the new Renaissance people. They the new decentralized education system. And this is only going to continue. Companies are already hiring creators for major roles. Ridgem, the wallet company, brought in a creator as their chief creative partner. This will become more common. Having a personal brand is no longer optional if you want long-term career security. Even corporate leaders are starting personal brands because they know it is essential for survival in this new economy. Let me address another objection I hear all the time. Everyone is selling information products these days and it feels like a scam. I get it, there are plenty of bad actors out there, but think about this. People complain that certain skills aren't taught in school. Things like how to make money, how to build relationships, how to take control of your future. Now that those skills are being taught publicly and often for free, people call them a scam. That doesn't make sense to me. Of course, there are people who take advantage of others. That is true in every industry. But the solution is to dismiss everything. It is to learn how to distinguish real value from hype. The one-person business model is for people who value self-reliance, time freedom, and location independence. You use social media to attract like-minded people. You use simple tools and software to build your digital presence. You build an email list that can be taken away from you. And you design a lifestyle that works for you. Usually 2 to 4 hours of work a day to start, sometimes more if you are in flow, but the goal is to work smarter, not harder. If you've ever helped a friend or family member with anything you learned, you have enough experience to start. How do you think you gain experience anyway? You don't get it by reading about things, you get it by doing things and getting direct feedback. Writing content online is one of the fastest ways to learn because it forces you to articulate your thoughts clearly. When you write, you expose what you don't know. And that is a good thing because now you know what to work on. Think of your social media as your public notes. Share ideas that you find helpful. Give yourself advice publicly. Dante promised to make people millions of dollars. Just share what you are learning and experiencing. There is nothing wrong with sharing an idea you found in a book in your own words. That is how knowledge spreads. That is how you build credibility. Here are the 3 paths you can take to start monetizing. Path 1 is skill-based. You learn one marketable skill and sell it as a service. This works and it is the most common advice. But be careful, if your entire brand is based on one skill, you can become one-dimensional. It can get boring and you might trap yourself in a new 9-to-5 path. 2 is development-based.